time you do that shit, you be having me nervous. You get so scream. Don't do that shit while we doing the intro. Come on, man. Well, you already know what it is. Welcome to another episode of More Than the Time. I'm your host.
I'm crazy.
He's out of control, man. You already know, man. I'm out of control. I'm Jarrett, Chief Revenue Officer, Outside the Box Digital. And you know, I got my brother, my brethren, your favorite CEO, Chadeo in the building. What's good, cuz? What's the vibe?
Listen, man, I'm excited. My energy's up.
He's back.
He's back yet again. You know what I mean? Listen. Before I introduce Nadege, hold on, Nadege. I'm going to introduce you in a minute, but let me say it right now. We got another phenomenal guest because I've been forgetting to say
it. You remembered.
I've been forgetting to say it, and God damn it, I'm not going to forget to say it. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm about to introduce you, our third host. You know what I'm saying? But before I do that, we got another phenomenal guest that's agreed to come on and drop some gems on y'all. Get your tape decks ready. Get your CDs ready. And with that being said, you know it's a bunch of testosterone between me and Cuzzo. You know we out of control. We always out of control. That's why we brought on Nadege, aka The Balance. The Balance to help smooth out the testosterone in the building.
What's up, y'all? Like he said, my name's Nadege. I'm super excited to be here. Always great chop it up with these guys. You know, it's a show. It's a vibe. I'm ready to get started. How about y'all?
Listen, ladies and gentlemen, she had to get braids because she was pulling her hair out, dealing with us. She's like, you got to get a protective hairstyle.
No, y'all haven't met my father yet. Y'all are light work.
Family get together, so we don't do that for content. We're doing a family get up. The more than time family thing.
I love it. So, ladies and gentlemen, you know how we like to start each and every show. G&T, grateful and thankful. A lot of times in marketing and sales and in business, they say your net worth is your network, right? Your net worth is your network. So they encourage you to have a little black book or Rolodex back in the day, right, of people that you could call when you need help. So G&T today is shout out to all the people that answered the phone for us this week because we made a lot of calls this week, right? We got a lot of events coming up thanks to you guys being supportive, thanks to all the companies and the phenomenal guests that we've had come on, giving us opportunities. And we made a lot of calls and a lot of people answered the phone.
Absolutely.
A lot of people answered the phone and gave us their time and gave us their input and their knowledge, and G&T to that, right? We're grateful that the people answered the phone and gave us their time and thankful that we are still being able to cultivate these relationships. And when we call, they answer. So that's the G&T for the day. Grateful and thankful, man. Our Rolodex.
I like it, man. I like where we're going with it, man. Shout out to our partner, part of the Rolodex. Shout out to Sis Angel Leavers and entire team. You already know, man. Shout out to the Live Podcast Network, the first woman-owned, black-owned podcast network. So if you want more content and like more than the title, make sure you take out your phone, scan the QR code, download the app, and you're going to get nothing but great content. And half of your subscription goes to the content creator of your choice. So you know we don't just talk it, we walk it, y'all. And you know our saying, what a time to be alive, man. Make sure y'all catch us there. You know what I mean?
What a time to be alive.
With that shit, let's get it going. Let's start the show. Introduce this brother. First of all, I want to thank you. Like you said, man, grateful and thankful. It goes right into it. Before we give you the intro you deserve, bro. This is our first time all of us linking up. First time linking up. We haven't had a conversation. We didn't do a pre-scan call or anything like that. I cold emailed this brother. Cold emailed to say, yo, look, this is what we want to do. I see what you're doing, man. Man, we'd love to have you on. Almost instantly. I was like, God damn, you had it on your almost maybe like 10 minutes later, you say, man, let's do this thing. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to say thank you, man. And you gave us some words of encouragement. You told us that you love what we're doing and we appreciate it. And today we're making it happen. So we appreciate that. So this brother right here, man, he's a powerhouse behind one of the most recognizable tech platforms in the world. He's the former head of global agency partnerships at Snap, where he led some of the company's most strategic relationships and drove Snap's international expansion across emerging markets. He was born in Honduras, raised in the U.S. He navigated complexities of immigration system from early age, turning every roadblock into motivation. His journey is resilience, hustle, community, building a success through strong relationships, focus, and a deep commitment to paying it forward. He joined the company after the company went public and quickly became the first hire on the international expansion team, a team that grew into $100 million plus business unit under his leadership. He's dedicated to empowering the next generation, volunteering in mentorship, educational programs, leading DEI initiatives, Latinx community at SNAP, and champion access to technology for the underserved. He lives by the mantra, don't knock the hustle, and he's just getting started, and you've seen him in the boardroom.
Boom.
You've seen him in the conferences. You've
Boom.
seen him on other podcasts.
Boom.
And now he's on your favorite podcast for the very first time. Let's introduce our brother, Max Rivera, y'all.
Thank you, guys.
Woo,
That's an intro.
woo.
What an intro. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that. Lots of GNTs your way. So thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. You had me at the
Absolutely.
title, by the way, of title of the podcast. So when you sent me the invitation and said more than a title, it just clicked and resonated right away. That's why I said yes right away. It was a no-brainer, man.
Max, I'm telling you, we get creative. I'd have sent you an email saying my last name was Rivera. Like, yo, you my cousin, Max. Hello, Rivera, Max Rivera. We gotta be. Come on, cousin. We done got creative with it. So, thankfully that you accepted the first one.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't have to get to that. Yeah.
But love, bro. Appreciate it, man. Real talk. We appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming on. Thank you for the listeners right now, everybody that's tuned in. Y'all know how we like to start, man. This is more than a title. We go deeper than the title. We go into the person behind the title. That's what we care about. It doesn't matter about your title. You could be CEO, CFO. Doesn't matter, right? If you're a good person, you hold it down, you work hard for your success. That's what we care about. So, like how we usually started, bro, let's start from the beginning, man. Talk about, we said in the intro, born in Honduras. Like, tell us about the early influences of growing up, man.
Yeah, 1000%, man. And a small correction on the bio. I was born and raised in Honduras.
Born and raised.
Raised in Honduras. Okay.
Yeah. I've only been in this country for about, I think it will be 16 years, or it was 16 years this February. So yeah, born and raised, moved here by myself as a late teenager, essentially. But just to bring it back to like my roots there, yeah, man. I mean, it was incredible, really, to be born and raised there. And overall, my story, as I'll walk you through it, is like a story of basically of like wonder and exploration, tons of resilience and just like ambition, and then a shit ton of fortune. We can curse, right? Can we?
Absolutely.
Don't worry.
Yeah. Yeah, just a lot of fortune, man. And the first fortune was being born in that country. It is just like a super vibrant country, super vibrant culture. It's a land of hustlers at its core, which I love and I carry with me. Super fortunate to be, born to the parents that I was born to, both incredibly, loving, supportive, entrepreneurial, smart. My mom is a scientist and a doctor. My dad is a businessman, an entrepreneur. And so, yeah, born to that family, two amazing siblings who I still to this day I'm chasing and looking up to. So just kind of an incredible family there, an incredible upbringing in the country of Honduras, and then got a chance to come here at a young age. And like I said, moved here by myself at the age of 17 to go to college, essentially, and then fought my way to stay here. I think even just a couple of weeks ago, I was going through some immigration situation and thing. And so, 16 years in and still kind of fighting my way to make sure that I'm still in this country and still standing still. But I've built my roots here. I have a wonderful family, have a super supportive wife who's incredible, and two amazing kids that we're raising here. And so that's overall some of the background on the personal side, and obviously happy to get into the depth and the more professional side and my career and how it all went down and what I pursued. But just to give you a taste of the personal background and my personal story.
I want to start with your parents. Max, I want you to understand we've had 200 episodes, so many guests. I think you are the very first person, Cuzzo, correct me if I'm wrong. I think he's the very first person to come on and say, I am extremely grateful to be born to my parents.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard a guest come on and actually say that. And mean that, right? Like I'm saying, like, I love my mom. I love my dad. You know what I'm saying? Like, we hear some stories. So I want to start there. For you being a family man now yourself, okay, you have a family, you are a parent, you're an adult, you look at life completely different than how you view life as a child looking at your parent, right? So for you to say that as an adult is really like a testament to how you truly felt about the cultivation of what your parents provided for you, right? And, just upbringing, love, care, nurturement. Like, I just really want to touch on that, right? So you said, dad is a businessman, you said?
Yeah.
And mom is a scientist?
Yeah, she's a doctor, microbiologist. Doctor.
Microbiologist. Wow.
Yeah.
So just walk us through that. So you have two successful parents in two completely different fields, right? What's the upbringing in the household? Are they like super hard on you? Like, yo, you gonna do that homework? You're not going outside. Like, what's the upbringing in the household like?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that you ask, and it's interesting that you say that I'm the first one to maybe bring that up.
Yeah.
And look, of course, I love my parents, but I think I learned as much from their things that they're great at and their graces, as much as also some of their shortcomings and whatnot, especially as you grow up. And so I think I kind of have a balanced view in terms of that. So by no means I want to paint this perfect picture, right, or something like that, in any means. They were both just super hardworking. I think that was probably one of the biggest lessons, just like super hardworking.
Yeah.
But then also just super involved in our lives. I don't think they were super overwhelming necessarily to your point, Chad, in terms of them just being on us for homework or for tasks and whatnot. I think they provided a lot of freedom, but they were also not absent, and so it was like an interesting balance of both of them balancing super busy careers. Both of them traveled a lot, worked hard, and so that got instilled in me, I think, subconsciously, right? Just like the value of like really working hard, but at the same time balancing and like not being completely absent. And so that's without having to go too deep, because maybe I need to do even more reflection on my own childhood, I think, into some of these learnings and whatnot. But just on the surface, I think that was a lot of what I learned, and certainly what I try to model now as both a professional and a super involved parent, just because that's what I strive to be.
Yeah, and the reason I say that is because a lot of us, Jarrett is fortunate enough, and Nadege, they come from a 2-parent household and things of that nature. Their parents are still together. But a lot of us, what it is, like, especially the urban city kids,
Right.
We don't come from 2-parent households, right? So again, not that we don't appreciate the things that everybody loves their mother, right? Mommy's like everything, right? So like I said, you just kind of take it for granted sometimes, or you look at it differently when you only have one. But we like to see the difference in when people are raised with a 2-parent household versus a single parent household, and just see what the influence is like, right? What the upbringing is like. And you said that now you are one of 3, so it sounds like you're the baby.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so now you have 2 siblings that you said that you were chasing. So tell us a little bit about like what they do and what they've gone on to do also.
Yeah, totally. So my sister was the eldest,
Okay.
and just I've always seen as like a super smart and also ambitious person, and she's always been extremely driven, and I've always admired her. To this day, she's just incredibly successful and smart in her own ways. She did law school and now works in some kind of government and jobs, and just been incredibly successful in that, right? But just have seen her also as a parent, and just you look up to your older siblings. I had that fortune of also learning from as they grew up. I feel like I always just was observing like lessons that maybe they weren't giving me directly, right? But I was just kind of learning from observation and from being around them.
Message in the movements. You say it all the time. You learn from their mistakes. Message in the movements.
Yeah, and that's you hear that a lot, but then also from their good moves, right? And the things that they do right, and just kind of like observing both, and just being kind of observant, and just being around sometimes just really helps, right? Just literally being close, just helps. And then my brother, who's the middle one, is probably the most creative person I've ever known and just admire. He's just incredibly creative. Like, he can paint, sculpt. He's a professional photographer, did fashion photography for a long time. Have shot photos for Vogue. It's just like incredibly successful person too, and just extremely creative. And I lack creativity in my end. At least I'll take that back. Not creativity itself, but I lack the artistic skill sets. So I don't have the craft, right? So I can't draw for shit. I can't paint at all, right? Like, none of this stuff. I'm creative in other ways, but he is just like took all of those genes from the family pool, and is just like extremely creative and super kind and caring. So that's my older brother. And again, from both of them, I learned different things, and just was always around them and observing and looking up to them. I still do. Like I said, nowadays, I look up to them in different ways, and I appreciate their friendship and just being around each other so much.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, no, I love it.
I'm glad the family talk resonated. I didn't think we were going to go that direction, but I appreciate that is something that resonated with you guys, and I definitely think it's important.
Family first, always.
It's your foundation, Max. We can talk about the success of your personal life. We can talk about the success of your career, but nothing is possible without the foundation in which you're building all of these things on, right?
Method.
You don't have the fortitude and the conviction and things to go out and we're going to talk about traveling to the United States, like you said, by yourself, and the mentality of I can make it, I can do it, the support, then none of that happens. You understand what I'm saying? So it's very important because this is a family show, right? Me and Jarrett are related. We're cousins, and you know what I mean? So this is a family show, and we work a lot of the times at the events that we do. Our children are there with us. You understand what I'm saying? Our sons are there. Yeah. We both have 2 boys. Our oldest boys are always with us. We're teaching them the business because it's very important to show, not just talk, right? Yeah, you can tell a child to do something, but we know more often than not, children follow what they see. So that's why when you said what you said, it resonated with us because we want, that's what we want. I would love for my children to be like, are you crazy? Like I had the best dad in the world. Like, you understand what I'm saying? When I know my son is the oldest. He's 23, so he's an adult. So my youngest is 16. Jarrett's oldest is 17 now, right?
About to be 17. Yeah.
About to be 17, right? And then he has a younger one that's 5. But you know, now that my oldest is an adult, he understands life better now, right? He understands. We have adult conversations now, not just, you know, a father to a son, but just 2 adults talking. And I can say, let me tell you some of the things I couldn't tell you back then when you were a child. You're like, no, I figured that out you know what I mean? So it's so dope that you said that, because that's what we aspire to do. We aspire to leave a legacy that will feel fortunate enough to have us as parents and understand the sacrifices and everything that we made to give them a great possibility at life.
That's a fact, though.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I be trying to get a layup.
You know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to get too deep on it, but we move like that, Max. Like, you know what I mean? So yeah, it definitely resonates with us. Go ahead, Naj.
Yeah. So I want to connect that foundation to, you know, you starting your career, like coming to America, getting started at working, having that support back at home. Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah. Well, you know, I wouldn't have been able to come here without that support to begin with, right? And you're totally right, Chad, too, on what you said is sometimes also just kind of having just that backing in the back of your head. You know, sometimes, you know, especially when I moved here, and again, I moved here by myself, and there was a bunch of challenges, right? And moving, and you feel lonely, and you're young. Jarrett, I moved basically at the age of your son, basically, so right after I turned 17. But just in the back of your head, kind of mentally knowing, well, I have this foundation and I have this support back home is just massive. Just having kind of that mental backing is just a huge help. But yeah, as I started here, I mean, I was so determined to come here. I think, you know, my parents always remind me that even when I was younger, you know, early teens, I was like, I'm getting the hell out of here, and I'm going to the States, and I'm gonna, you know, I have big dreams and I have big ambitions, and they just knew I was gonna do it, and I just did it pretty much, right? I like found my ways and, you know, made my way through here thanks to a scholarship. And so I was able to come and go to this like very small liberal arts school in northwestern Pennsylvania, 11 hours north of Philly. I moved in February from Honduras, having never been anywhere more north than Orlando, I think is the most northern part of the world that I had been to. Wow. And then in February, I moved to this town called Erie, Pennsylvania. It's a town for Lake Erie. And so training by fire in terms of winter, in terms of American culture, is just, you know, in the depth of kind of rural Pennsylvania, essentially. But it was incredible. It was like everything I had, you know, dreamt of, basically, and what I wanted as a kid for the longest time. And I got to meet, you know, so many incredible people there. And so, yeah, I started my my journey in this country there. I sometimes joke that that's where I grew up in America, right? That was like my hometown here, or kind of like my growing up town, which was this like random place.
Erie, Pennsylvania is the start. Damn it. It's bad, like nothing happens in Erie, Pennsylvania.
Nothing at all.
Movies happen out there.
That's what I'm saying. I do want to go back too, because like you said about the support system and you know, for you to go, but it's also a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure, bro. You're coming over here, you're 16, 17, right? You come to Erie, Pennsylvania, you're in the college, they're partying, there's beer pong, there's this, there's girls, there's all, like there's a lot of temptations, right? And you also have the family, like what if I let them down, right? So how did you get your mindset to stay absolutely laser focused at 17?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I appreciate you saying that because you're making me reflect. I actually don't think I felt that pressure, and that is
Okay.
probably a huge thing to also be thankful for, and to like that could have easily been the case, right? That could have easily been laid upon me in terms of pressure and all that. So you're making me reflect and appreciate that, like, oh yeah, I didn't have that pressure. I didn't really feel that pressure. Um, I think in part also it was just my ambition. Like it was just no messing around. Like I just there was no pressure because I was just gonna make it. And I don't want to say that I've made it, but essentially I was gonna like finish school and do it right, and then I was gonna find my way to do whatever, no matter what, right? So in some ways there was no pressure from that perspective. I was just gonna hustle my way through it one way or another, right?
Message.
And so it just never felt that way. And believe me, man, I partaked in all the stuff you mentioned, right? And so I don't want to paint this picture of this like angel kid that just comes here and locks himself in the library studying and like going through all that, because that wasn't the case, right? I did all the stuff that you mentioned and I enjoyed that very much. And I think there's huge value in that. Sometimes learn more from those experiences than from the books and being in the library and being locked into a classroom. And so
Message.
yeah, I mentioned I come from entrepreneurial roots, and I've been entrepreneurial myself too through school and everything, and I was the same thing in college when I came here, right? So soon enough, I was working with my roommate who had a band, and we were trying to help them break into the music industry and going to clubs and bars to help them get gigs, and just starting to do that on the side from my school and all that stuff. So again, by no means was I like a kid that was locked into the library and just trying to get good grades and go through that. I was from the moment I got there basically just hustling my way, and that's still the case today.
I wanna say this, right? Because your English is absolutely like perfect. Like I don't really even hear an accent at this point. Like, I'm being honest with you. Like you know,
better than mine.
yeah, it's English. Like I don't even hear an accent at this point, right? So I know the native language of Honduras is Spanish, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So did you actually learn English before you came to America, or again, was this something that you got the opportunity to come to the college, but now you come to the college in America and the primary language is English. Now with all the pressures that you didn't feel, what about learning the language and then learning from these professors? What was that experience like? Because most professors teach in English. So, what was that journey like?
No, I definitely learned a lot growing up.
Okay.
So, I knew a lot of English coming in, always been a fan of American culture, American TV, American music. I grew up on like 50 Cent and rap culture, right? So like, I was always around kind of English and American culture. So I definitely learned a lot back then. Erie is well known for having no accent at all. So I think that helped, because definitely when I got there, now I'm like English 24/7, right? And school fully in English and everything in English. Girls, your game in English for the first time and having to do that's a whole nother thing that I had,
the game.
And so, I definitely perfected it when I was there. And it just sort of happens that, they just have a very kind of bland accent too, because they don't have like a Southern accent or like a New York accent or Boston accent. It's just a very bland town in general, and including their accent. And so, part of it is that, but it definitely comes out, later at night or with a couple more drinks or a couple glasses of wine, the accent starts to flare a little bit. So it definitely comes out a little bit more.
I like it. I like it.
Majoring and all that, bro. You said you went to a liberal arts school, like what was
it was liberal arts school, but I did a business degree, like a boring, just very traditional business degree. But it was liberal arts, and I mentioned that because I just studied everything there. And at liberal arts school, you're typically just I had classes on everything: arts, religion, all sorts of things, ethics and history, along with my like business degree. But it was just like a very traditional business degree.
I feel like liberal arts is always like one of those degrees where it's like, I don't know what I want to do, but this will be a degree. Like you take liberal arts until you kind of figure it out, and then you get like a concentration and go from there, kind of a thing. Like it's like a little bit of everything.
Which to me is perfect. I think that's all you need. Talking about advice, because I know that's a lot of the audience here too, right? Like I feel like when you're in a young age, you obsess over like the degree and the title and all this stuff. And I appreciate it. You get to learn about as many things as you can, take as many classes as you can, meet as many people as you can. Like that's probably where you learn the most, as opposed to whatever you decide to put on a paper that later in your career you're gonna forget about, right? So
I like it. Now, Nadege, what was your degree in when you went to school?
So I have a degree, a bachelor's in fine arts and a minor in psychology.
Oh, fine arts. Okay, I knew it was art somewhere in there. Like,
Love it.
yeah, they say, like when you go to these institutions, right, the education is important, but really what you're going there for is the camaraderie ship, right? The bonds that you make with the people that you're there with, right? Ivy League schools, they argue a lot of times like an Ivy League school education isn't better than some of these other colleges that it's the same education, but it's the people that you're going to meet in these Ivy League schools that go on to become, congressmen, senators, and people of power and influence. And then you can say, hey, I know this guy, we were roommates, or, I'm in a sorority with this woman, or I'm in a fraternity. And that's really like a lot of the true essence of like, what college is, and then doing the wild, crazy shit to kind of like get it out your system. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're young, you're transitioning into your young adult years. So it's like, okay, before I get a job and really have to get serious, let me just go crazy.
That's a good, what was the crazy? You said you was doing entrepreneurship. You was working on a band with the homies and all that. Yeah. Like, what was the worst business? Like that your parents was like, what the hell are you doing? What was that, bro? I know they had to be like, we sent you up there to the area and you what?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think the college roommate band thing was pretty crazy because we took it pretty seriously. It wasn't like we took it pretty seriously. Did it for years. It opened a ton of doors, but I think it always probably looked like child's play and like it just sounds like it almost sounds like a traditional movie, American movie cliche thing, right? It's like the roommate has a band and you're kind of like trying to make it big and try to make it in the music industry because we took it that way. We put in good effort and it included all sorts of things like touring and all that stuff and not the glamorous type, right? This is like a up and coming struggling college band that is trying to like tour in like northwestern Pennsylvania, right? So definitely not the most glamorous, but it was super fun, right? And it included a lot of late nights and tours and things like that, and college tours and all this stuff. But I loved it. But it probably, from the outside, as I told my friends or my family that I was like spending my nights doing this or putting a lot of effort into this, and that this was the hustle and this was the dream, and they're gonna make it big and we're gonna be superstars, right? Like from the outside, it probably looked like you're crazy, right? Like you're doing something crazy, and like that's not going to be the case. And don't think it panned out that way, but it opened so many doors, like so many doors. And part of it is just again my ethos and my way of being is just that like whatever I'm going to put my effort into, I'm just going to hustle my way and make something out of it, even if it's not what I had intended or what I planned. I'm gonna find a way to get fruits out of this labor. And so, endless stories on the things that we opened, because I went deep into the music industry and started to do a lot of work outside of this band within the music industry, just from that hustle essentially. And that's kind of where I started.
Wow.
Yeah, you always start someplace and end up another place, right? Again, your mom is successful, your father's successful, your older siblings are successful, but when you're going to college, like what's your early? They say you change your mind 3 times as a person on what you want for a career. You have like a childhood dream, and then in like your high school, college years, you'll change it to something else, and then you'll try that, and then as an adult, you'll finally kind of settle in. So when you go to the school, though, what does like young Max want to do with his life at this moment? So you're in this school, but what do you want to do? We understand your work ethic. We understand you're going to go full steam with anything you get involved in. But what does Max want to do? Like, what was your initial passion?
I think the earliest, clearest picture was probably around music. Like I wanted to be like a music manager or an A&R type. I think that was like the earliest that I like really thought of like a career path or like a journey. But I had always been in business, technology, like marketing, advertising was very interesting to me. So I was taking a lot of classes and doing a lot of work.
Right.
And then I loved music, right? I mentioned music before. I mean, grew up listening to hip hop and like just always loved music in general. But I also mentioned before, I don't have any artistic skill set. I tried guitar lessons as a kid for a long, long time. I can't sing, all these things. But then I realized that I was really good at the business stuff.
Gotcha.
And then I was really good at the technology stuff. At the time, technology meant opening up Facebook pages, right? This is 15 years ago, running Facebook pages or trying, very simple websites and blogs. And I was really good at promoting and selling things. And so I was like, okay, this is my way in. right? Into music, into the things that I love. I'm going to find what I'm good at and apply them at things that I love. And it wasn't as deliberate at that, right? Like now I can express it better. Now I can explain it better. I wasn't an 18-year-old thinking this way, but like that's what ended up happening, right? Is that I realized I was good at business and technology marketing, and I applied it into things that I really liked, which was music. And so that was the first time that when those two things came together, like that peanut butter and chocolate combo came together for me, I was like, oh, that's the career I want, right? I want to work in music as a manager or A&R, which basically combines these two things, right? And really tried hard at that. I tried hard to do that. Didn't pan out necessarily, but it kickstarted everything for me. Like, a bunch of things happened, from there, and got to do a lot of awesome work that I'm super proud of, that came from that.
I think he got the name for it, the Max Rivera Agency.
Right? Like,
it got a nice ring to it, right? Like, who's your manager? You know what I'm saying? It got a ring.
Like that.
Max, I'm just saying, it got a ring to it.
Never say never, right? Never say never. We can still start.
Never
it.
know.
Yeah.
It got a ring to it. Shit, I ain't gonna lie to you, bro. So, but what? How did you get into tech, though? Right, bro? Like, so we could go into the tech, and we could come back and forth. But how did you get into tech, bro? I've been in tech 15 years. To get Snap, was that your first opportunity in tech?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Wow, that's a damn good first shot. God damn. Yeah. Shit.
Yeah.
Love that.
I think directly in tech.
Damn. That's
the first opportunity. Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah. But you know what? It even took me some time to realize that I was in tech, and I'll tell you kind of like a realization or a lesson that I think happens to a lot of people. So I was in media, right? I was in advertising. The way that I got to advertising really briefly is that, as you guys have been hearing, I love the arts and I love creativity, but I can't do any of that, right? I love tech. I've always loved tech. I've always been into computers and all that stuff, but don't have enough of it to be like an engineer or like behind a computer all day, because I'm super personable. I like to be around people. I love business. I've always, I've been selling things since I was in first grade. I've always had little side hustles. Like, I'm a business person, and realize that advertising is basically the Venn diagram of those three things, especially like digital advertising, right? It's obviously a creative industry. So you're surrounded with creativity and creative people and creative work. With tech, it is where digital advertising, there's a lot of technology behind it now, right? And all the big major tech companies are, make their money from advertising, whether it's Google or Facebook. Now, Amazon has a huge advertising business and so on. And obviously it is a business. It tries to drive business outcomes. Advertising tries to grow brands and drive sales, right? So kind of realize those three things. So I did a master's degree in advertising to get into the advertising industry, and then landed in New York. That's what brought me to New York, right? It was like the dream of Madison Avenue and all this stuff, right? And so got to New York, worked at a couple of agencies, and through that, I was working in digital advertising, and this startup, Snap, was starting to build their New York office, build their advertising business. They had just launched their first ads on the app. And, they had users all over the world, especially a lot of users in Latin America. And so I joke, and it's half joke, maybe 40% joke, 60% truth, that they found the first Latino in advertising in New York and said, help us figure out what to do with this region. Help us figure out how to monetize and make money in this region, because we have a lot of users, but it was too early for the company to like open up operations and all this stuff. It shows you how much of a startup it was that they just hired the first kid that they found, right? And just assigned them to work on the Latin America region and helping support some of the strategy for how to monetize the region. So they were taking a leap on me, but I was also taking a leap on the company. So I left my advertising job. I didn't know, now it looks obvious, right? But I didn't know what was going to happen with this company and what it was going to be. I was really good in my job. I was in a really happy place, but decided to take the leap and join tech. But to me, it felt like I was in advertising, right? I moved from buying advertising on the agency side to now I'm on the sell side of advertising. It took me a while to realize, oh no, I'm in a tech company. This is a tech company that happens to sell advertising, happens to make money through advertising, but it is a tech company, right? It's one of the leading tech companies, one of the leading social companies. And so it took me a minute even to make that realization, to your point, Jarrett, of like, oh shit, I am in tech.
But quick, for the audience that may not be familiar, can you just break down real quick, simplify the buying side, selling side? Because they might not understand that. Like, what is the buying side of the agency versus going over to Snap for the selling side?
Right. Yeah. So the explanation there is the buy side is the agencies that buy on behalf of brands. And these would be the brands that you see whenever you go on YouTube, whenever you go on Instagram, on Snap. You might see an ad from a brand. Those are usually bought through an agency. So agencies usually do that on behalf of the brands. And then the sell side would be the platforms that have the inventory or have the user base that can put the eyeballs in front of the brands, right? And so that transaction happens in like a marketplace, obviously. And so that transaction happens. And so I did that flip from the buy side to the sell side. Yeah,
but it could be manually. Sometimes, depending on the ad inventory, depending on the network, it could be programmatic. Programmatic is a transaction that happens in milliseconds, right? You buy the inventory. This is your audience. You segment your audience. Then you buy it from that side. And in Snap's case, right, you have all this inventory. The inventory being eyeballs in these specific regions that you're trying to sell to the Nikes, the Ralph Lauren's, whoever they are that wants to get in front of that audience.
Exactly that. Yeah, and obviously, that is where I started professionally, so we can go deep into advertising because that's the part where I really kind of cut my teeth in the industry, and that's still Snap's business, obviously, and a lot of my focus and my work with Snap has been there, and basically, like I mentioned, a lot of these tech companies are advertising driven, and if there's a lesson there for anybody that's interested to break into tech, is to not think about that the only way to be in tech is to be a geek or a techie or an engineer, right? Every tech company has accountants, has lawyers, has operations people, has strategy people, has business people, advertising people, right? So, if you want to be in tech, don't rule yourself out if you don't have an engineering degree or if you don't know how to code, because obviously they need all sorts of other functions within the tech companies.
Method. I'm gonna say this. Max is very adventurous. Go ahead, Nadege. I'm just saying you're very adventurous, Max. I'm just gonna throw that out there because you come to a new country, you're like, fuck it, I'm gonna go to this college, I'm gonna be a rock star, I'm gonna be a band, and you get a job, you're like, I'm good, I got this money, I'm living good, and then this new startup coming, you like, fuck it, I'm gonna do this. Like, you're very spontaneous, Max. Like, I just want to say that to you. Like, I don't know if you realize that about yourself. Like, you're very spontaneous.
Yeah. So, and maybe it's coming across a little bit more like that now, right? Like, I definitely, especially with that decision to go to Snap, I was definitely debating it a lot. It wasn't as much as like a, fuck it kind of thing. But I agree. So what I said at the beginning, my story is a lot of like just wonder, which adventure maybe is a synonym for it, right? I've just gone on a bunch of adventures and I've just been somewhat fearless, although I go into them with a lot of fear. Like, I'm afraid of the change and I'm afraid of the moves and the things, but I go with it, and that's the fucking part of it. I'm like, okay, I'm scared of this change. I don't know what's gonna come out of it, but let me take the leap, right? And so I've done that time and time again.
There you go.
And that carries through. To be honest, I mean, I think you were saying, Jarrett, before, like, you get settled after a while, right? Like, you're still exploring when you're in college, and then eventually you get settled in your career. I feel like I'm not there yet, right? So I'm not settled at all. I'm still wondering. I'm still exploring. I'm still taking leaps, right? And I'm still making changes, and it's scary. But I'm still doing it, right? Like, I'm not, by no means am I done, and I'm in the settling place where I'm like, now feel like my career is settled in a specific spot. So I'll just continue with that adventure in mind, Chad, and maybe that I'll come to realize that you're onto something, and that's probably just in me, that I like need that adventure all the time. So.
No, Nadege has a question. The reason I brought that up real quick, Nadege, and I know you got a question, is because a lot of our guests come on and say they love the startup. They love it. Like, they love that you don't know what's going to happen. Let's build it from the like, and we're talking people that have built companies to hundreds of millions of dollars, and then we'll leave. Like, okay, you guys are good. Now let me go start with somebody that got a budget of like 100,000 and start all over. And they're like, are you crazy? And they're like, no, this is what I love doing. So maybe,
real quick, bro, why people go to startups is because creativity, that's where creativity thrives.
Yeah.
It's a blank canvas.
Yeah.
What did Udi say when we just spoke to him, right?
Yeah.
How to make sales easier.
Yeah.
If you go to a place, it's a startup, and all they want is sales to produce revenue, is how do you make that easier? They're going to listen to every idea. They're going to listen because there's no built-up process versus you going to a legacy company. You go to Coca-Cola or Google, Amazon right now, their process is built. Yeah. You can't come in there and innovate. That's not happening. right? So if you're creative and you're thinking like, yo, look, I got all these big, bright ideas and I want to do this, Amazon's not going to be the place for you. Google's not going to be the place for you. Meta's not. That's just what it is. They have their process baked in. Unless you have a forward-thinking CMO or something like that,
Right.
it's going to be like, hey, the amazing, almost like Tarek said.
Right.
Doesn't happen. So that's why people thrive to startups. And then when you do make the sales, it's a shitload of commission on the back end.
Right. So now when you say, Max, you're not a creative, bing bong, there you go. Maybe that's your creative. You can't scope. You can.
Yeah.
But I can do this though. You see what I'm saying? Like, so that's
No,
why
totally. And that's why I even corrected myself when I say
Yeah.
that. And I guess I'm
Yeah.
training myself not to say that because I'm just not artistic. I'm not artistic. I'll say that. Definitely not artistic in terms of skill set, but definitely creative in a lot of ways. So
Yeah. I'm sorry, Nadege. I cut you off. I'm sorry.
So I want to talk about you mentioned that when you first started, they put you Snap put you into like looking at the Latino demographic. Right, for us people of color, we usually end up being tokenized. How did you break through that tokenize and elevate within Snap?
Ooh, hold on. I gotta get a bell for it.
The second period?
We in third period, fourth period.
yeah,
Fourth period now. That was real.
Definitely deep question, and you have me wondering if I actually did that successfully or not. And maybe to an extent I did, but the mission was basically to help monetize the Latin American region. So it was Latinos in Latin America, not here in the U.S. And we definitely were always kind of fighting for why that mattered internally within the company, right? And obviously I was brought in to do that, and there was some buy-in from the top to do that. But I think it was always a kind of battle to understand like what was the value of that. And believe me, there was no ill intent or reason why people would think that there was no value because of who we are. But it was just like the nuances of that region, right? It's smaller, it's the smaller economies. There's countries in tumult, right? And there's countries where their economies are in trouble, and like there's political unrest in some parts, right? And so the business opportunity doesn't look as obvious or as attractive to a business like Snap. And so we always had to be really smart around how we approach that, because to an extent that's true, right? As a startup and as a business owner, I mean, you have to also be honest, right? You can't just say, oh yeah, I want to build my business, for these people, or like I'm just gonna like be blind to the business realities and just focus on diversity or on like ethnics just for the sake of it, right? You still have to be true to like your business metrics and business goals. And I think that's what we did, is that we always were true and balanced in terms of what that opportunity was. We were real, so we never asked for huge teams because we recognized the size of the opportunity was smaller. We recognized there was a lot of risk. And so we always were very responsible in terms of how we managed that operation. And that was, super, we were very correct in doing that. Like we were very accurate, because a lot of things happened in years afterwards that had we invested a lot, it would have created a lot of problems. I probably would have been out of that company really quickly. But because we were very safe in how we approached the business, because we were real, and sometimes ego gets in the way. You want to build big teams and you want to do big things, right? But we were just really honest around how things were, and we moved a little bit safer. We use this term a lot of like diversifying risk, and just like, okay, let's go into this mission and this adventure into this region, but let's mitigate risk. Let's make sure it's very risky to begin with, but how do we remove some of that risk by the way that we operated? And I'm obviously happy to get into the details of all that, but that was like my role for like 2 years, is how do we go and monetize this region in a very risk off way, just avoiding risk as much as possible.
So we have a saying here, bro, is impact over metrics, right? So if you're somebody that's from the Latinx community, right, you want to make sure you have impact, but you also want to do it in a business safe way, right? So like, how do you balance both, right? Because if you're doing it safe, but you're also going to a new region, right, where ideas in marketing and advertising says safe isn't the ones that go viral and get us the business, right? So how do you balance the two?
Yeah, I mean, it was hard, but I think like what we did is we just found ways to scale it, right? There was ways to kind of satisfy both ends. And again, happy to maybe get into the details a little bit more of this, but what we did is outsourced our operation to third parties. So that mitigated a lot of the risk, but we still had operations on the ground. They weren't our own though. So they meant that we can walk them back if we needed to, we can scale them back if we needed to. So we just found creative ways, going back to creativity, right? We found creative and smart ways to still have our foot in there, but without having to bet the farm on that, right? Because it was very risky. And again, had we done that, now looking back, had we bet the farm and had we gone all in, that would have been a big mistake. But the fact that we went in this way where we just approach it slowly, I think was the right way. And we just had the right signals to know that we should approach it that way, right? Believe me, I mean, sometimes I also think, man, what would have happened if we would have invested all in? Like, would that have been a different story? Could have we changed the metrics? And you'll never know, right? You just kind of have to go sometimes with what you have in the moment. But you know, it was great for what it was. You know, I still, you know, back up our decisions at the time and the way that we approached it, and we learned a lot. And that's the last thing I'll say on this is that we always try to paint the picture of short term versus long term, right? So we said, okay, in the short term, the opportunity might not be as large right now because of these realities, but over the long term, this is strategic. Right. And we look at some of the companies that you mentioned, Meta, Google, they have huge businesses in Latin America, huge businesses. And so, hey, if we ever want to even look up to these guys and like try to get to their scale, we better learn from this region early and quick. We might want to learn slowly, right? Because we're smaller and we, you know, need to take things slower. But the sooner that we start learning and planting seeds and learning and, you know, the better, because this is going to be an important region one day, no matter what, right? Like, so we balance that. We try to apply that balance and that kind of thought process throughout the organization of just saying, let us do this. We'll do it responsibly, but you know, we try to highlight the importance over the long term.
You know, I think the only way that you could do that is if you talked about mulling it over. Okay, I have a really good job. Maybe I want to switch to this new company. And you made the switch, right? But they had to provide an environment for you to make you feel comfortable with expressing these ideas, right? Building the team and making you say like, okay, this is the place for me. Because a lot of times, a lot of people will take a chance on a company and within the first 90 days be like, yeah, this is not for me, right? So what was it about the company that gave you that warm and fuzzy to be like, I really made a good decision and I'm going to like invest myself in the growth of this company? What was that?
Yeah, that's an awesome question because I ended up being at the company for nearly 10 years. And so not only did I stay there for more than 90 days, but you know, the company meant a lot to me and definitely was aligned to a lot of the things that I was looking for. So I'll mention two things, and maybe there's a third, but two that come to mind as you said the question. Because we've been talking about this so much, the company has these three values, and company values are often very cliche, right? There's shit that you see on a website, on a wall or something, but I'll bring them up because I think this company tries to live up to them. It doesn't always, right? Because no company, no person is perfect, but the values resonated with me and I'll probably carry them with me and try to live up to them too beyond the company. So kind, smart, creative are the three values of the company. And I think we've talked a lot about that today. Or at least I've shown it in the conversation. So those three things, I think, you know, were really great about the culture within that company. And then the second, because we've talked about this too, I always describe Snap as a teenager company. And I really like that. It wasn't a startup, right? A full startup, because I work a lot with startups today, and hopefully we'll get to talk about a bit about some of that. So I work with real startups today that are 10 people, right? 50 people. Those are small startups. When I joined Snap, it was around a few hundred people, close to 1,000 people. And now it's about 4,000 people, close to 5,000 people. And so that's large. And we were talking about numbers right before we started, right? Like some of the numbers, this company makes $5 billion a year. That's a lot of money. That's not a startup, right? It's a public company. Shit. $13 billion, right? Big company. I get it. I think Meta has as many like concierge or mailmen as Snap has employees in total. I think, you know, Google has as many, you know, so we are also at the same time dwarfs, and I still say we, just because I left the company recently, but the company, you know, is this like very, very small company in a lot of the metrics, not just an employee size, right? And revenue, the 5 billion that I mentioned is huge. You know, Google loses 5 billion a day, right? Like it loses and gains 5 billion a day doesn't make a dent too much, right?
That's their marketing budget.
yeah, exactly. Like for a campaign in a quarter or something. So, you know, the scale of Snap is really large. Super proud. You know, they have close to close to a billion users. So, you know, a ton of people that use the app. but at the same time, they're competing with these massive companies, Google, Facebook, Amazon, even TikTok nowadays, right? So they compete. And so I really love being in that space where you can look up to these giants and feel like you're small and feel like you're an underdog and you're operating there. But then you can also look down to startups and companies coming up and new competitors and partners and ecosystems, and they look up to you and you're like, oh, you're like this big corporate guy. Like, no, I'm a startup guy working at this small company trying to fight it out. And I just loved operating in that space. That's certainly what it's hard to find companies in that middle ground that are still growing and still doing cool, great work, impactful work, but are kind of in that mid stage. So that was really good for me. And that's why I stayed at the time. And that's why I stayed for almost 10 years within the company.
What Udi just say to us, punching above your weight.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. Punching above your weight is an excitement to punching above your weight, knowing that you have the people that you have that aspire to be, but also know that you're not there yet and coming up with creative ways to execute and gain market share on their ass. Like that's the fun part. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's what we're doing as a small business, right? We have that. Think about us, right? We're punching above our weight. There's productions that have $1 million budgets, right? But they can't even. There's people who've been doing interviews in journalism for 30 years that can't get Matthew Knowles. They can't get Tara, because the people that we've had can't get Max. You know what I'm saying? Like real shit. Punch above your weight.
Yeah. Max, he gave you the political answer. I'm from the South Bronx. We from the hood. I was born to punch above my weight. I was like 5'2" my whole life, Max. All my life I had to fight. I've always been punching above my weight.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah. But tell me about it. We've just walked through my journey, man. Like same thing, man. Like I've been punching above my weight line. I shouldn't have even made it to this country, let alone graduated college, let alone, all these things. And just getting started, to be honest. And we talked about this before, like small teams, small resources, constrained things are sometimes way better for innovation, for creativity than these big, large corporations. And so I also don't aspire to work for those big companies too. They're just not my spot. And I know friends and people that I admire that thrive in that space, right? They love getting to their job and having a playbook delivered and knowing how to do step by one seat, and admire people like that. They're great. That's just not what I'm not cut that way.
It's also good for the resume, Max. A lot of people do it for the resume. Let's be clear. To be able to say I worked for Meta, to be able to say I worked for Microsoft as ABC, it's impressive on the resume. You understand what I'm saying? Like
some people the title makes them.
Yeah, it does.
Title makes them. That's why we are more than that. I don't give a fuck if you worked at Meta and you was the CFO. If you're an asshole, you're an asshole. If you're a bad person, you're a bad person. It doesn't matter.
But what does matter, and we talked about it, Max, right? Let's say you did this phenomenal job, right? Now you have this major company backing you that you can use and say, yo, I worked for them. I did this for them. Now, whether you're an asshole or not, if there's another company looking for somebody like you, that name will walk you right in the door. You understand what I'm saying? Like, and we talked about that on the show where a lot of times our guests, and we talk about other guests that didn't know what they were doing at all. Like Bond was one of the worst people at their job, but because they were able to list that on their resume, they're going to get opportunities like this, because smaller companies are going to look up, well, shit, if a larger company took you, you know what I mean, and brought you on and had you doing that, then shit, we would love you. You know what I mean?
Bullshit in the industry, and that's why we're creating this.
Yeah.
Just because you work at that, you could be a good fucking interviewer.
Yeah.
And you go to your job and don't know shit about shit.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that are great at that.
Yeah, and look, I'll give you two perspectives on that. One is when we hired, I made mistakes of hiring people from those companies because, to your point, it's very attractive, right? You see and you're like, oh, this person was in this place for so long and these companies are great. I admire those companies. Those companies are awesome. I love their products, love the company, right? I wish I could build a business like that. And so obviously you see people that have made it there and work there and you're like, oh, they must be great. But it's just not the same environment, right? Working at a Google or Facebook, Amazon, these large companies, it's just not the same. It's not the same. It doesn't require the same skill sets. It might be in the same businesses, even have similar products, but you're going from a company that has, 5,000 people just on your team to a company whose total employee count globally is 5,000 people. And your job description probably spans through multiple job descriptions, right? And you have to wear multiple hats and things are not defined. So it just requires a different type of person. And so I learned to recruiting afterwards are like, okay, it's not that we're not going to hire people from those companies, but we got to probably weight that lower in the evaluation scale, right? You can't be drawn to just like those names. So that's one piece. And then the other piece, as I think about what's next in my career, right? And I oftentimes think or get offers or have conversations about these bigger companies, the worst would be that this podcast comes out and then 2 months later I'm working at one of these companies, right? And you guys
Meta, he's right under Zuck.
We're gonna get you, Max. We're gonna get you
there. But the point is, if you go in there, just be real about it, right? Be real about it to yourself. What are you getting out of it? What are you getting out of it? Know what you're getting into. Be honest. Know yourself. Know what you're getting into. Just be real about it to yourself, not to other people. Who cares what other people think and how it looks like, right? But just be real to yourself. So if I were to do that, and for the right role and for the right thing, so just for anybody that is either considering going to those companies or have worked at those companies, just be honest about what you got out of that experience or what you might get if you go there, right? And as long as you're honest about it, man, like I respect the hustle too, right? Like go there, get that name on your resume, put the logo on your career, do that, learn from them because they're amazing companies, and then see what you can do with that, right? So again, I just don't want to bash anybody that works there or is considering working there, which might be me one day, right? So,
or get the bag. Hold on, or get the bag, Max. Don't turn that down, Max. Now if they throw that bag at you,
right.
Get the bag. The problem with me is right. But I feel like, all right, cool. You get the bag. You're at a Meta. You get the position, all that. But it's like you said with the team, right? Dennis Rodman wouldn't have worked on any other team besides the Bulls or the Pistons, right? Because he had a specific skill set that was needed for that team, right? So you might have worked well on the Coca-Cola, the Meta team, the Google team, but when you come to the startup, there's people running circles around you because you don't understand how to work in this environment. And I think that's where a lot of opportunities get missed from people that actually are good in those roles because they just see the title. And this is a part of the reason why we created this. So for me, to give you background, bro, I was in sales, but we're devs. We have our own agency. We're devs. We can code. We can build your website. We can do creative campaigns. I've sold every facet of marketing you could think of. But why the hell would you put me in one facet in sales when I could also help with the rebrand? I could also help with the logo. I could also help with the funnel. I could also help with all these other things that are not necessarily my KPI.
Right.
And if it's not my KPI, does it mean it's not less valuable than somebody else that I know that's working in that role that doesn't really give a shit about the shit, but I'm passionate about it? That's my thing. So how do those people? So this is what this is for. It's for the people that's like, yo, look, I'm in a role that I know I'm good at, but I know I could do 10 different fucking things. I know I can do so many other things. Just give me the shot. Message. That's what this is, bro. So I'm glad you said that, bro, because it's like sometimes people just get it. We've worked with people that work at Coca-Cola, and then we sit there and get a marketing call, and we're like, you worked at Coca-Cola, and you don't know this?
Yeah.
Like you like Jim Jones, you don't know a PDF?
Yeah.
I'm not touching that. I'm not.
Gangster.
Just to think about like something else that I think could be applicable to the audience, trying to get advice is something that I learned just recently, a couple of years ago, and I think we'll live by this now moving forward. Is to also not put all your stock into your job, right? It's just a method. It's just a title, right? It's just a company. Some people just put all of their life and energy into that company. And that's why, like I mentioned a little bit here, I've had side hustles my whole life, essentially. I was in first grade, middle school, high school, college, advertising, Snap. I've always had, things on the side. And at one point deep into my career at Snap, I think I let go of that and I lost track of that. And then I wasn't as happy, like, because to your point, exactly what you're saying, Jarrett, it's like, I can do more. I can do more things that this title that you have me on, that this position that you have me on, that this box that you've put me in, I have more to give. And because companies work this way and it's fine, you don't have to fault them to it.
Yeah.
That just wasn't there. And it's fine.
There you go.
But when I got over it and said, okay, it's fine, I'm gonna find and put this energy somewhere else in the side hustle or in the side project or in this other place. I'm gonna pour my energy, these other things that I need to get out into these other things. I just became happier at my job. I became better at my job. Then I became better at the side hustle and side project, right? And I created this flywheel. But it just had this realization that like you just can't put all of your eggs into the job and think that like you're gonna get everything out of it. It's not fair to the job to think that it should satisfy all your boxes, right? Your job and there, and do things that you need to do somewhere else.
I got mixed emotions about that. Go ahead, Naj.
No, I want to talk about, you mentioned, you're very interested in mentorship and, uplifting smaller businesses. Like, what are you looking for in those small businesses, in those communities to, feel like it's worth your time to support, invest, and mentor?
Yeah, I don't have a super clear-cut answer, but I love, I think first people that I can connect with, right, that I'm going to enjoy working with. And that tends to be a lot of people that look like me, and whether it's immigrants, whether it's Latinos, whether it's, I'm a young professional, right? So I just, like that to begin with. And I am really passionate about technology, like I mentioned before. And so typically it is companies in the technology space. So entrepreneurs like this that are disrupting in the technology space. That's my focus generally there. I don't have, again, like I mentioned, like this clear answer to give you, like, meet this criteria and I kind of, go there, but it's usually, founders that I can connect with that I feel like I will enjoy working with, in the technology space. And the other thing is too, that I can add value. I sometimes, get a lot of, entrepreneurs that come to me and ask me about all sorts of things. And I'm honest, I'm like, I can't help you. I just don't have experience there. Right. Like, I'd rather just spend my time in places where I think I can make an impact. And sometimes because we work at these companies or whatever, people think that like, oh, we can help in all these areas. And like, no, like I know my skill sets. I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm, interested in or what I have experience in. And unfortunately, not every industry. And so there's a lot of industries that even though I may like the products or may like the companies, may like the founders, but then I'm honest. And I'm just like, I just don't think I can help you. Right. I would be bullshitting you to tell you that I know about this industry when I don't. So.
See, that's what I was gonna say. That's what I was gonna say, though, man. I feel like I have mixed emotions about how deep you should dive, because I believe if you get a job, you should immerse yourself within that job, right? And just hear me out, right? You should immerse yourself in that job to try to learn as much about that job, because only then will you really realize if that's really right for you or not. You understand? Like, get a job. Let's say you get a job, and like you said, you got a job before Snap, and you're in this company, and you're like, okay, I don't really know what I want to do, but I know what my skill set is. So now you explore, right? Okay, this is my job title. This is my position. I can do this. Now, obviously, you can promote within the company, lateral move, and things of that nature. But there will come a time, and I think this is where a lot of Americans and people in general, let me not say American, people in general end up getting stuck. There will come a time where you feel like you have outgrown where you are, and you know it, You're like, I've outgrown where I am right now. The decision is, do you make the change because you might now have a family, right? You have responsibilities, you might, right? Car, house, or something like that. Do I take the chance to lateral move and find somewhere else where I can creatively keep flourishing? Or do I just stay where I am just because of the paycheck and the comfortability of that, of it being what it is? That's the biggest thing right there. Because like you said, you can work for a lot of these big companies, but realize very quickly that's not the place where you're going to flourish. So are you doing yourself, or are you doing the company really a service when you're not giving your all? That's it. It's the toss-up.
It's the toss-up.
Yeah, it is a toss-up. And I think different times in life, right, and different circumstances call for different things, right? So
there you go.
And that's what we said before, right? Like,
there you go.
A company that's established and gives you the process and you clock in at 9 and leave at 5 might be great if you have young kids, right? Or if you're going through stuff or like different stages in your life. So don't rule things out. Yeah, in general, right? I think to your point, having side projects or side hustles might not be something you want to do day 1 on the job, right? Might not even something you want to do year 3 in the job. But maybe it comes a time where like you realize like you can, maybe extend yourself a bit more and do those things. So yeah, there's no kind of clear formula or something that you need to do in day 1, and everybody's situation is slightly different. But I agree with you. I think also dedicating yourself fully to a job, if it's the right thing, and putting in all the effort to it, is also great, to your own job or to your own job. Because, I've also heard different advice, Chad, about the side hustle. there's a lot of people, I think even probably like Scott Galloway says this a lot, if you guys, follow and listen to his stuff. If you have a side hustle, then your main hustle is not the right thing. Give that up and put all your efforts to the side hustle, right? Could be the other flip side of it, right? It's like you're splitting your efforts between these two things. Pick one. And if you're really passionate about the side hustle, then maybe pick the side hustle and put all your efforts there. Not everybody can do that all the time, right? In different circumstances, but depending on the time and place, sometimes you want to put all your efforts into your main hustle, which might be a corporate job. Sometimes you want to say, you know what, I'll take a leap, put that on the side, and I'll put all my efforts into this side project. And I think just realizing that these decisions are not ultimate helps. I think because as a young person, you always think about these things as like ultimate, right? It's like, oh, like we were saying before, like, what am I going to study in college? Like, what's going to be my major? And you think about that so much, like it's this ultimate decision that once you graduate with a degree, you can't work in another industry. It's like, come on, you can make a decision now, things change. So you can make a decision today to put all your efforts into this business. And if it doesn't work, move along, go to the next thing, put all your efforts into this job and then move.
But when do you think enough time is enough? Right? When do you think, like, just a roundabout, right? Okay, you start a job 2-3 years in. When do you think enough time is enough for you to make that decision without truly, because you don't also want to be hopping, you want some type of stability, right? Some type of stability for a retirement plan, et cetera, et cetera. So when do you think like enough time is enough where you have experienced the company, you see where it is, you see what the opportunities are, but what you're kind of feeling before you kind of make that decision and say like, yeah, I think I need to, make a move now before I end up, blinking and then I'm here 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, and then I do something else at an older age, at different responsibilities, where the decision is now 10 times harder because you're not young Max that just came 17 by himself. You're now little older Max with a wife, first of all, right? With a companion. Then Max is now a father, right? And then maybe a second child. And now we have a home and we have vehicle. Now the responsibilities now will weigh in versus like, but am I happy? Am I happy? Am I fulfilling myself? Am I fulfilling what I feel like I was put here to do? When do you think enough time, like, just around, obviously it's not a solid number, but if you could say like enough time to invest in the company before you should know when it's time to move on. What kind of time frame do you think you would give?
I'll answer your question, but a lot of what you said now also hit home, right? Like, you spoke to the heart in terms of, my situation. And I'd say again, fortune, just to kind of wrap roundabout the story too, right? I'm fortunate to have a super supportive wife. And great kids and just fortunate about the life that we're building together. And so, I feel just really fortunate around that like, even with those responsibilities and those things, like I have the support system and my wife and in the family, again, the life that we're building to be able to make the moves that I need to move. So that's huge. All of that being said, to your point, it's hard to put a number to things, but I think what would look bad is if you're jumping around and don't last at a job for more than a year or two, right? So that's the only thing that you would want to avoid, I think, on the minimum end. I don't know when is the right time to maybe start thinking about moves or other projects, because all of that varies on very specific circumstances. But you want to at least give a job, a year or two. Even if you're super miserable in that year. And again, it's just like as a young person, or when you're going through the thick of it and when you're feeling really shitty and like you hate that job or you hate what you're doing, it feels long and it feels miserable. At least give it a year, because sometimes you just don't know, right? You don't know what's coming around the corner. You don't know what change might come and all this stuff. And so I would, at least as a general advice, tell people, be patient enough to at least give things a year or two. And you don't want to have many of those, right? You want to have just a couple of those of like, hey, you tried something, didn't work, because everybody understands that too, right? Afterwards in your resume and your long career, everybody understands you had a few short stints in places and things didn't work or things changed. So that's all good. But you just don't want to have, 60-80% of your resume be a bunch of these short stints, right? So make sure that's a small percentage of your overall experience. So, if you're only 5 years into your career, maybe you have one of those. As you get older, 10 years into your career, you might be able to have a couple of those short moves, right? So that's how I would frame it, as opposed to give you like a hard number. I would just kind of keep it that as a minimum.
Oh, I feel reversed, bro. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Really?
I feel reversed.
Okay.
In tech, people move, right? Like, I'm gonna be honest with you. I know a lot of people that's not from my culture that bounce around all day, and that conversation is not had. I get that conversation. I get the why you bounced around and why you was here for a year and Like, motherfucker, I got fired, and I was a top performer. Now what? The top performer, I did 1.6 million in 6 months. Nobody else did a better job than me. Then they kept John Smith. Does that mean anything? Like, and what I would tell people is just like me being an older person now in my career, bro. I've been everywhere. I worked at Hootsuite, Talkwalker, I worked at Cannes. I was the first Black employee at Cannes. I opened the office. I didn't know. I thought it was the film festival, bro. We about to go to Cannes next month. You know what I mean? And that was just me betting on myself. I didn't know nothing. I was doing $250,000 a quarter at this other place. I could have sat there and milked them. Went over there, took the leap of faith. But what I'm saying for other people, like for young professionals, just go with your gut. Trust your gut. Trust your gut. You know when something's right and you know when something's wrong. No job is worth you coming home and bringing that shit home. No job is worth bringing that shit home. If it's toxic, if it's this, is that, none of it's worth it. I don't give a fuck what they become to do. Just do what you got to do. If you're a happy employee, you're going to be a happy performer. That's bottom line, right?
I love your realness, man. I love your realness because I think it's right, and I love the debate too, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's right, and the thing is that we're obviously talking in absolutes and then like hypotheticals, right? Every situation is different, and definitely to an extent, right? And if there's a very toxic place, and I've heard horror stories of places and things, like, of course, like we're just talking within reason of like, I have a boss that it's a little bit obnoxious, or I have to do a few late nights. I don't know, like, small things that I think also as like young professionals, you make bigger deals of, right? And so I think there's some patience there, but everything to an extent, right? Everything has a limit. So of course, if you're coming home super miserable and it's really affecting your health, your relationships, all this stuff.
Yes.
Also, you can't stand that too long, right? So I appreciate your realness and where you're coming from.
That's the situation we're in, bro. A lot of people are going to work miserable because we have responsibilities. And that's just what it is, bro. I know a lot of people going to work miserable, can't stand the shit. Just take a leap, man. Take a leap. Like, I had to go through bad leadership to know what good leadership was. So yes, you need that year or two in the bad leadership to be like, all right, cool. This is what I know not to look for. This is what I ask in the interview process. This is what the red flags I should be seeing early in the process to know not to go to those places and all that. So like, you got to go through.
Yeah. And I'll plagiarize or quote again Scott Galloway, and I listen to him quite a lot. But I think the overall advice or kind of outcome for somebody that's listening and thinking and hopefully in their head debating between the two approaches, right? He says, and I love this advice, is to build your cabinet of like either mentors or just people that you can call and talk to that know your situation. Because as you can see here, right, like very experienced people, we're all debating, have different opinions and different things. We've all gone through different things in life.
Yeah.
So you need somebody, like, of course, listen to podcasts like this. I listen to a ton of content like this, and I think it's incredible. But also combine that with like one or two people that know your personal situation and can give you the real advice with your real context, so that like you take that into consideration too, because everybody's situation and time is different. And so if somebody's listening again and debating and thinking about all these ideas, take this podcast, send a link to one of those people in your cabinet, right? And say, hey, I listened to this podcast. I think it's super interesting. I'm debating this. I don't know, but you know my personal situation. What do you think about the advice that they're giving, given my personal situation? Because you have to just put that into context always.
Well, we got
to give that as a shout out.
We got a professional. We got a young professional in Nadege, right? Yeah, Nadege is the young professional. And when you say young professional, I thought you put it up to the Nadege. You're the young professional. You're always speaking for the young professional. That talk to us then. As a young professional, right? In your generation, what are people thinking, right? What are you experiencing out there, right? What is the feedback that your people are giving you about what's out there and what they're doing right now?
Honestly, right now it's similar to what Jarrett said, like, trust your gut. If you feel like this is not the place to be, you can always leave, because at the end of the day, right, you're just an employee. I've read so many stories of an experience, coworkers and passing away, and literally 48 hours later, their jobs right up on the board. So it really like I'll say for Gen Z, it's very much fuck that job.
Talk about it.
Because their energy towards you is fuck you. So if the employer or whoever it is that is not reciprocating that general respect, then I have to step away, because most of us, right, have that confidence and know that we have a valuable skill set that we can take somewhere else. We are like, and that's why like I really hopped on with y'all. I love the message. Like, we are more than our title. We are humans. And if the employer is not going to treat me like that, there's literally no reason for me to stay.
Message about it. Talk about it. And so I want to go on a positive note too, because I want to ask you something. I wanted to ask you, Max. You was a Forbes 30 under 30.
Quick correction, not Forbes. I got a 30 under 30 award. It wasn't Forbes, but it was another very respectful magazine. No. It's a 30 under 30 award, but not Forbes. And I don't want to, put misinformation out there.
I'm literally looking at Gemini
right now. No, it's the next gen.
It says
it's called the Next Gen Award.
Mm-hmm. No, it says it was named to Forbes 30 under 30 list in 2022. He's recognized
on some AI thing.
Yeah, AI overview. I literally put Max Rivera 30 under 30. He says a global partnerships angel investor advisor was named to the Forbes 30 under 30 list in 2022.
Oh man, hallucinations is what they call it in the AI world. Just
no shit, no. You said that's when you run with it. He said you damn right I was 2 years in a row.
You guys can edit it, right? Can we? You guys are making edits, right? So give me the thought, and I'll say yes. But
not just a 30 under 30. You're also on a 40 under 40 list as well.
Crazy.
Yeah.
What is that process like? Do they hit you up? What is that like?
Yeah, this is the list specific for Latinos, so I think it meant a lot more even. And so that's what the Next Gen Award that you were saying, Nadege, it's a specific list of the 30 under 30 kind of next generation Latino business people and so this great organization has started this. I think they're now in their 5th iteration. I now have gotten to even be part of the jury that helps select others, which has been incredible. So they're a super supportive organization. It's called Hispanic Executive, and they're incredible. And if I remember correctly, I saw a former colleague I think had received it, and then just checked it out myself and just sent through my information for it. I mean, it was as simple as that. So yeah, not that much more to it, but it has been awesome. I'm super proud of any recognition, whether it's Forbes or not, right? It doesn't need to be those. And again, just I'm trying to think always as like applicable advice for people, right? Look for those accolades wherever you can. It doesn't always have to be the big names or these big kind of things. There's many people that want to celebrate people like us and give us our flowers and give us our recognition. And so look for those. That's what I did. And I'm super grateful. It's definitely opened a lot of doors and has been really good to get that recognition from our people too, directly, right? So it's been really good.
Clarification, I clicked on the link. There is a Max Rivera, but she's a young lady.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I clicked on the link. She's a young lady. Yep, I'll send you the link. So
I got homework to do. Okay. I'll got to connect with her.
I'm like, God damn, that's in the name? So that's my bad.
No, good.
My bad. Damn. So
I wasn't as quick on the trigger as I want, but I was looking for the sound effect for that when you said that. I was looking for the sound effect, but I was like, which one I would have given for that one? Like, here we go right here.
What's wrong with this guy? Am I kidding me?
Bro, you know what? It's not the first time, by the way, because it's just everybody just assumes because these awards, they're the most well known. So not the first time I get that, and I always like to be honest about it. I don't want to,
that's right.
Claim shit that's not.
I told you it's the name, Max. What did I say to you at the beginning? The name, it got the ring to it, man. It's like
Max. You're right.
Max Rivera.
The Max Payne.
So I know you said you wanted to talk about the other smaller companies. Let's dive into that, right? We were talking about the other smaller companies that you're involved with and things of that nature, and you building them out and things. What type of information do you want to give us on that, or want the people to know about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of like the latest chapter in my journey, and I've appreciated how we talked a lot about even from my upbringing and very beginnings to the chapter that I'm in now, which is like a few years later. a few years ago, sorry, I realized that I love startups, right? I love these early stage companies that are building and doing new things. But I was at this job that was very good and that I felt, happy and comfortable and all the things that you said before, Chad. And so I was like, okay, I'm not ready to leave this, but I want to be exposed and work closely with early stage companies. And so I started doing advisory and kind of mentoring some entrepreneurs, people that could, learn from my experience in terms of joining Snap early stage and my background in advertising. And that quickly started to get me into the world of venture capital. And that's really what I'm passionate about now. And it's just part of my adventure. And I've been told also that like I'm crazy for thinking of doing that, or that I don't have the background because in that industry a lot of people think that you need to be somebody from product or from engineering, or you have to be a founder yourself. They don't see a sales guy or somebody that's worked on advertising as good people to be investors or to be venture capitalists. And that's been my life story, so I don't care about that, and I'm still going for it, right? And so for the last few years I've gone really deep into learning about that space. I don't have a finance background. I don't have a banking background or any of this traditional background that maybe you would get into venture capital from, but that has never stopped me before. And even this, stage in my career that I'm in is still not stopping me to basically just start from scratch, start at the bottom and just, be a brand new investor. And so I've been learning. I've been putting in the time, putting in the 10,000 hours, and it's been, incredible. I've become really passionate about this because you meet incredible people that are building awesome companies and then have a view into the future of where technology is going with AI, for example. Now is basically trying to find the next Snapchats, right? When they were super, super early, when they're 10 people, when they're 5 people, and they have great ideas on how to apply these AI technologies and other new technologies for things like that. And so that's my focus. I have a portfolio to date of about 16 companies that I've invested in, and I'm actively investing basically. And so if you guys know, anybody's listening, or if you guys know what could be the next kind of generation of consumer or social tech startups, I'd love to meet them, and always kind of actively looking to meet those founders and talk to them and see if we can help either through investments or through advisory.
Welcome to OTB Digital. They're the next one's up. I heard about them.
Crazy. Again, it's a hell of a pivot, Max. Not to say that you can't do it, but once again, like that's what they're saying to you. Like that's one hell of a pivot. Most people that do VC work, finance. You know what I mean? Business, finance, something along that line, right? Again, not to say that you can't do it, right? But that's what they're saying. Like that's a hell of a pivot from where you was at to like you want to do what? You know what I'm saying? Like,
no, but I want to ask you a business question. Now, when you're investing in these companies, right, and you're helping build it, right? We just talked about how to make sales easier, right? How do you approach them when you're investing? How do you the valuation, negotiation? What things are you doing for the company? How do you navigate all of that space to make sure you get value?
Totally. So one thing I'll say, again, I'm still learning. I'm very honest about that. It's only been I've been doing this actively for about 3 years. And that's very short in this game, because you have to see these companies play out over 10-year timelines or so, right? And so even the companies that I mentioned that I've invested in today, who knows, right? Time will tell if I'm making the right decisions or not, right? So to your question, I've been learning about it, right? So I'm still kind of refining some of that. A lot of the valuations as a small time investor and a lot of the terms, and as you start to invest, are basically just handed to you. And there's little negotiation that you can do, because as you can imagine, and I'm happy to talk about this too, that like you don't need to be a billionaire to be an angel investor, and you don't need to be, hugely wealthy in order to get into this game of buying small shares of small businesses, whether they're in tech or not, right? So democratizing that and lowering the entry level so that people feel like this is more accessible is very important to me. But as a small time investor, right, that is not signing millions of dollars in investments, you don't have as much negotiation, right? And so you're oftentimes just given terms, and then it's up to you to know if you like them or not. And so that's the part that I've been learning and being really disciplined on. Is I might love the companies, or I was just looking at a company today that Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, is an investor on, and you get to see all these big names sometimes attached to these companies. And so it gets really attractive. There's a little bit of FOMO that comes with it. And you're like, oh, and it even kind of loops back to the conversation we were having before of recruiting. And that's where you apply some of those learnings into this game. And some of the stuff is very transferable. So it might be very attractive. Oh, Sam Altman or Mark Zuckerberg or Mark Cuban investing in these companies, right? That doesn't mean it's a good investment for Max Rivera, who's investing very small money. And there's all of these people, right? And so I've been very disciplined on that at times, because also when companies have those names attached, the valuations to your question on valuation just goes up because it has this vanity name to it, right? And so I've been really good at that, of saying, okay, yeah, I would love to be around the same cap table and the same ownership table as these people that I look up to, but not at that price. At that price, I'm honest with myself, I can't afford that, or it's just not economically sensible for me to do it at that price. And so I have to say no sometimes to opportunities that I feel bad about, that I'm like, fuck, I wish I could be there, right? I wish I could see that company. But at that price, it's just too much for me and where I'm investing. So I'm trying to be very honest around that. And so I have now learned to have kind of my price range and where I like to stay in. And then I try to stay very disciplined in terms of that price range of valuations on these companies.
Method. Real. Yeah, Max, you're a beast. I ain't gonna lie to you. You're a beast, man.
Yeah.
I'm glad we had this conversation. This is crazy. I love it.
Yeah, you definitely
We've gone in
dropped
so
a lot
many
of
directions.
knowledge.
Well, that's why I didn't forget to say phenomenal at the beginning of the thing, because I knew he was going to come on and drop some gems. You know what I mean? So, Max, we talk to a lot of people about just honestly like fulfilling their life's mission. Like, this is what I was put on earth to do, right? And when we first started, I kind of said to you, like, some people like the startups, they like the energy and stuff like that. So now that you've experienced so many different facets of working, investing, things of that nature, like, what is Max's like life mission? Like, what do you feel like if somebody had to say your name, Max Rivera, and tie it to something, what would you want that to be?
He's podding now. He's podding. That was a damn good.
Yeah. I should think about this stuff more, and I don't, for whatever reason.
That's okay.
But the only thing that comes to mind, because right before this, I picked up my daughter from her soccer practice, and I said, "Hey, I gotta go do a podcast," and she was like, "What are they gonna ask you about all this stuff?" Typical, kid things. And she was like, "Oh, you're gonna tell them that you have 2 kids," and she wants to be a movie star. So she said, "You're gonna tell them that like your daughter is gonna be a superstar," which I did just now. But I think that's it, man. Like I'm a builder, and I love to build companies and businesses and technology. But the thing that I hope I'm gonna be the most proud of in terms of building is like my family. And it's super cliche, and it's like, well, whatever you want, but like, man, I am so driven, and everything I do, right? Like even all these businesses, and we didn't get into too much of my story around parenthood and all this stuff, which is a whole other thing. But like my career just propelled immediately as soon as I became a parent, and as soon as I started working for not my own success or my own kind of vanity and my own like, I want to make money for myself, or I want to like, it's all for other people, which is the family that I'm building, and that's what I want to be remembered for, which hopefully is enabled by all my professional success. So I also don't want to sound like, but I hope that like all my professional success, look, I want to make a lot of money in my career, right? I'm not shy about that. And all of that, I wanted to go to build my family, my generational wealth, right? Like that's what I want to be remembered for. Not maybe the individual projects. I want to, have my hand on so many things, and just like this conversation that touched on so many things, that like you can't quickly wrap up my conversation at the end of my life into like one big project, but you can just culminate it into an amazing family and legacy that I built through them. That's what to mind.
Hit him with the both times. You almost got two, 3, 4 messages.
I think it's a beautiful answer, and I think it's an authentic answer. I think it's an honest answer. It's your answer, right? And we share the same sentiment, Max. Like, understand, like we said, like, this is why we created this show. This is why it's called More Than a Title, right? more than a title, because it's more than what you just did at Snap. It's more than what you did at this company. It's more than what you invested here. It's Max Rivera, the man, the husband, the father, the best friend, the son, right? The sibling, like all of this encompasses who you are, because it takes all of these things to build you up into who you are, to help you maintain who you are, to help propel you further in your journey and whatever you decide to do. So, you know, I just want to say thank you for coming on the show. I know we coming up on time, and this was a super dope interview. And you know, I knew you were going to drop some gems, but I truly enjoyed this interview, and I know our listeners are going to get a lot from this, and you know, help celebrate the journey. Now, Des, did you want to say something before I close it out?
You know, I'm just going to ask the same question I always do at the end, because it's always important to know.
Go ahead. Go for it. Go ahead.
So I always like to say, right, in life, you should never pour from your cup. You need to pour from your saucer. So you fill yourself up. And then what runs over, and that excess is what you pour into others. So if you can, you know, few words pour into the cups of the young Gen Zs coming up in business, marketing, creative space, what would you want to pour into them?
Just that the future is bright. I think with AI and all this stuff, there's a lot of talk sometimes of like, you know, people are not going to have jobs in creative and in marketing and all this stuff. Cut out that noise, like, you know, forget about all that. The future is bright. Dive into all that technology, which a lot of young people do anyways, which I love, and that's why they're gonna rule the world, right? All these young people are gonna eat our lunch. I'm gonna try not to, right? I'm gonna try to compete with them as hard as I can, because I have that competitive edge. But just pour your heart into the tech. Don't be afraid of it. You know, shut all that noise that's saying that like the industries are gonna die or that people are gonna be out of jobs. And just work your way through it.
Oh yeah, amazing. Thank you.
I just want to say once again, you're a beast, bro. I love the family answer. I love the family answer. Just to reiterate what Cuzzo said, man. Like, this is what we do it for. I literally, man, my son went to school on a Monday 2-3 weeks ago and said I interviewed the CMO of McDonald's to his classmates. They don't know what the hell it means. The teacher's like, wow, that's pretty cool. like, this is what that means, right? And before we came on this interview, we actually did both, right? It was like, yo, Dad, I'll be watching. I'm your biggest fan. I'm watching. So those are the things that mean something to me. Like, it's that stuff. It's showing us, man. We updated. The listeners ain't gonna know what time it is. I've been up since 6 this morning, man. 6 this morning. And I'm gonna be up for another 2 hours. I'm gonna edit the fuck out of this content. It's just you got some clips, bro. I ain't gonna lie to you. So I'm gonna edit the fuck out of this. But I just want to say, man, this is the hard work, and your story, like, just exemplifies everything that we talk about every week. Right? You had every reason to say, yo, look, my parents are successful. Everything's going on. I don't have to go to the, I could do this, I could do that. You had the mindset. And we have a saying here, you have to choose to be him or her. You chose to be him, bro. You chose to come over here, be the first one to jump off the ledge and do all those things. So I just want to say, from hearing your story, it's inspirational, it's motivating, bro. And you're a beast, man. You're going to keep doing great things regardless where the hell you land and what you do. You're going to be amazing. And I'm glad to call you our friend, family of the show.
Thank you.
You know what I'm saying? Anything that we can do to help support that, we are here, bro. You're part of the family. Anybody we have on before or after, you now have access to, bro. So it's nothing but a text away. We're going to put our numbers in the thing. We're going to create a group chat, us for. Just check in, say what's up, man. You got something? We got something. We might put you onto a plug. Never know. And this is what this is for, bro. So it's about relationships and friendship. And we're glad we got this one with you, bro. You're fucking dope.
Thank you so much, guys. Yeah, before you close it out, I want to give you guys your flowers, because I told you this from the moment you messaged me, to your point, and like, you know, the title you had me, I was like, yeah, this is right up my alley. And I'm so glad, you know, that we did this. So thank you guys for doing this, because it means so much, not just for the listeners. I think you know the value you bring to the audience, but it means so much, I think, to the people that you brought on here, whether it's the CMOs of McDonald's and all the amazing guests that you've had. I'm sure it means a lot to every single one of them. It definitely means a lot to me that you wanted to talk about my story and my journey. But more importantly, I also wanted to say the way that you guys do it. That's beyond all. Right? Like the way that you guys do it, from the professionalism and the hustle of the cold email and the creativity that you get, how creative you get to land the guests, but just how organized, and then the realness of the conversation and the style of the interview and everything. It's really awesome. So kudos to you guys. I'm a huge fan. You have
appreciate it.
Super fan. I really appreciate you guys.
Yeah, I just want you to understand this, Max. When we don't gatekeep, right? So this is when we told them, ladies and gentlemen, like my cousin told you, this is our first time meeting Max and having a conversation with Max. But Max, we're not transactional, right? We're not transactional. So when we say welcome to the family, it's not just something that we say. We've actually done this now dozens of times, right? It doesn't matter if you see a guest that was previous to you or a future guest comes on, somebody that you want to connect with. It doesn't matter if you're in the same lane or not. We believe in putting people together. We already vetted you to bring you on the show. Our guests understand this. So if you ever see somebody that you want to connect with for whatever reason, we'll check your schedule. We'll check their schedule. We'll put you guys on a Zoom call, and then we get off the Zoom call, right? A, this is B, this is A, and then we get off. If you want us to stay on, we will, but normally we get off because we're this is how we help bridge the gap, right? You might need we know people that own banks. Like, let's be very clear. Like you said, you're into venture capitalism. Like, we know Doyle Mitchell, right? Who owns one of the largest African-American banks in the United States. I think the 6th largest, right? Family business, right? So we know people that own banks. We know finance guys. We know, so we might be able to help you with a project, or connect you with a person that can help you move a project. It's all for the community, right? This is our way of giving back. So we bring you on, we share your story, but we also try to connect you with like-minded individuals so that we can help you further your mission, to help be a part of your story now so that we can keep this thing going. So we want you, I know you heard it, but take us up on it. It doesn't have to be right away, but, definitely take us up on it because, like I said, we've definitely connected people. And you said you're in New York?
I am. Yeah.
Okay. So listen, if you have an event or you're doing something, or you just one day, want to, get a beer or something like that, we love to meet up with our guests and actually, again, further the relationship, right? It's not transactional. Like how I started the show, G&T, right? This is how you further relationships. You don't make them transactional. You don't make them always about business, right? Get to know the person and you build upon that, right? So if you have a event or you just want to, just hit us up and we'd love to hang out with you, man, and just keep moving this thing forward, right?
Ice cup weather. You already know we outside. We outside this summer, Max.
So with that being said, I said phenomenal at the beginning, right? I didn't forget it. And I reiterated now, another phenomenal guest. This man came on and told you his story. Even though he told you that he came from successful parents, he told you that, listen, I left. I spread my wings and I took the chance on myself. I came to an entirely new country, not a state, not a new country by myself. And I bet it all on myself, right? Because I was determined to make it. He also told you that he tried different things. Okay, I tried this, I tried that, and I seen what worked and I seen what didn't work. But one clear message that he kept giving you guys was, I put my all into everything that I did. I didn't half-ass anything. If I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna put my all into it, and I'm gonna give myself a true opportunity at being successful. He also told you that he came in, he started a family, and the support system of his partner allows him to continue to move forward and do what he needs to do. Again, you can't do this alone. Success is not linear. It takes a village to get you where you're going, and it takes a village to keep going. And then he pivoted. I did this, I pivoted. I did that, I pivoted. And now I'm doing VC, and probably after that, he's going to be an F1 car driver. And if he doesn't like F1 cars in Monaco, he's going to be a fucking astronaut. It doesn't matter because his name is Max Rivera. And the dream is free, but his motherfucking hustle
is sold separately.
It's only on More Than the Title, man. We see y'all next week. You know what it is, man.
What you know about me? Seeing it all, heard